Alright guys, what's up? Jan here. So in this video I'm going to walk you through the exact automations I built at my 7-figure lead generation agency. So why watch this video? Well, it can be two reasons. Either you have an agency yourself or any sort of online business where you want to automate more and you're kind of looking for inspiration as to what to even automate. Or the second one could be you're looking to sell automation solutions to business owners and you're like, what do these business owners even need, right? Like, what is the ideal situation? And I'm very comfortable putting it out there that I have automated my business, my lead generation agency to the desired state. I have so many automations that make the life of both myself and my employees a lot easier because basically, we have everything in an Airtable. We have everything that's like tedious and annoying automated, and then we also have the collaboration between different team members all automated, and then even we sprinkled AI in there, right? So I've been building this system for months and months and months, and I actually look at it like my own internal SaaS product, and to be honest, it's just insane, right? It's like the best you're gonna get. So I'm very confident on that, and that's why I want to share it with you. So you can actually see the type of automations I built, learn from it, take inspiration from it, steal them, I don't care, to help you make more money, be it with your own business, be it by selling to these businesses. So without further ado, let's get into it and enjoy. All right guys, so we're in my computer right now, and I'm just gonna walk you through it live. I'm gonna make minimal edits to this video. The only thing I will blur out is actually client names, because I don't want any of you smart guys trying to reach out to my clients or whatever, like, hey, you're already working with a lead gen agency, maybe 2 hours. Like, that's not what we're gonna do here. Instead what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna walk you through everything, and then whenever there's some like actual information about a client or whatever, I'll blur it out. It's gonna be quite a pain, to be honest, because I still edit these videos myself, but hey, I'm gonna do it anyway. And also, it's just a testament, something I want to put out there. Like, a lot of these guys making videos online, they don't actually walk the walk. They only walk the talk, I guess it is. They just do random stuff, and then walk you through it, talking like they're an expert. I'm actually doing this stuff, right? Like, my company is actually still running, still operating. I didn't shut it down, I just want to share with you guys what's going on here. So yeah, I'm just gonna go through it. I have a couple of folders here on the left side. So these are all like different builds, so to say. And I think one of the most important ones I want to go through first is this one. So I have a lead generation agency, and what we do is cold email. Okay, so that's our channel. So it's not Facebook ads, it's cold email that we do for clients, meaning we set up outreach domains, we set up inboxes, whatever, and then we scrape a lead list, and we're like, hey, prospect, this is what we do, as if we were the client. And then whenever they respond positively, okay, so if a prospect's interested in setting up a call or getting some more information, that's when we forward it to our client. And then on our client's end, there's usually like a sales team, or it's like the founder that's really focused on sales, and they're just like, okay, the conversation is now started, and we can pick up from here, and get the ball rolling on the deal. So that is what we do for clients, and that's like good to understand before looking at these automations, so you have a little bit of context, right? So yeah, OS 3 is basically our current version of the whole thing. So like I said, I really see it as a SaaS. We had OS 2, now we're on OS 3, and this is like the best version we had so far. So let me just walk you through like some of the automations here. So all right, so the first one I want to show you is just a super simple one. So we basically have a webhook set up in Front. So Front, I can show you actually, it's a customer service software, and all the replies our clients get, they all get forwarded to this like customer service inbox we have, which is from our internal domain, which is our basically endpoint where all of the communication comes together, so we can do things programmatically from there. So basically in Front, whenever a new message arrives, we set up a webhook, and we send it to the webhook, and then we create a record in Airtable. It's a super simple one, but the reason we did it is because we have peak hours, right? So in the morning, when a lot of our campaigns get started again, a lot of people just get into the office, we just get so many replies in that would just constantly crash our automations. So instead of like having these constant errors and being like, oh, it timed out again, I have to turn it on, turn it off, what we do is we just add them to an Airtable, which is basically our queue, and then in the queue we just said like, hey, this is the ID we have to pick up, and then we have the second automation here, which is actually going through the queue. So this automation, what it does, it basically searches the record in Airtable, as you can see here, and then it has a limit of 5 per minute. So just 5 per minute. And as you can see, we're running this at a decent scale because in the mornings we're way above that. So we have to, set up a queue in this way to slowly go through everything, and then we have 5 per minute going out. And then we're making a request to get more data. So this is like an API call to the front system. And then even here, we're just doing a little bit of a delay to make sure we don't overload our APIs, which is the sleep module. So this is like an AI prompt, and this is actually not our custom model yet. So we have a custom trained model with fine tuning that we used. But this is just like a regular completion we do. And basically we just classify whether the email is positive, negative, or out of office, just so we have that first layer. Because what we used to get is whenever we would get like a random newsletter in there or just a random email. Like there's a lot of edge cases basically. Our custom trained model would be like, hey, what's up? And it would sometimes, for example, a client would get a newsletter because let's say you do outreach to an e-com store, usually just randomly get signed up to their newsletter. And then you get that newsletter inside of the inbox, and then the AI would be like, oh, this is like a positive response. And the client would get like a notification like, oh, you have a new lead. And obviously it would be like a disappointment, right? Because it's not a new lead, it's just a newsletter. And obviously still some errors still happen and our clients are aware of it, but you just don't want to have that happen like multiple times a day, right? So we have like a 2-step, and this is the first step. And then depending on what the AI says, we have a couple of scenarios, and it basically just adds a label back to the front automation, and then it updates the row as well in Airtable. In that queue, it basically check marks it off like, hey, I've gone through this item, and you don't have to do anything with it anymore. And this is really foolproof as well, because if we run into any sort of errors before we reach the final step in any of these branches, it will basically try again, right? In another minute, it will try again and try and get that queue item, still processed. So this is one of the automations to get the first AI label on there. And then here's the second one. So whenever that first model, it marks it as either positive or negative, we then go into a more defined model, which is actually this one. In this second one, it's basically the second layer. So I'm not going to go through this entirely, but the kind of unique thing we're doing here, which is actually a bit of a pain, is we're setting the variable to remove the empty strings, to remove the quotation marks, to remove like new lines and get them to like /n, to basically make the text like JSON ready. Because here we're doing an API call to our custom model, which is trained on having it labeled everything manually, and we get a subcategory. But if we just feed in the email, we sometimes get an error because there's like tokens in there that basically crash the API call because it messes up the JSON, right? So basically what we do here is then if it's positive, we say either someone is interested, or it's a more information lead, meaning they request more information, or it's like later, so they indicate like a time frame, like hey, let's reach out back then, or they refer a colleague. And then if it's an unsubscribe, it's either like hey, I'm not interested right now, meaning we can reach back out again to them in like 3 to 6 months, or it's like a unsubscribe or even a company unsubscribe, where they're like hey, don't email anyone at my company ever again. Right, you do sometimes have those. It's part of the game of doing outreach, and then obviously you want to respect that because you don't want to then email those people again in a couple months, get the same response, and then just those people, you don't want to work with them anyway. It's better to just cut them from your list. It's better for deliverability. It's obviously also for compliance and just better overall for anyone involved to remove them from your list. So we do all of that here. So that's basically the labeling. So whenever an email is labeled, we now know, if it's a lead that we actually want to do something with, and for that we actually have another automation. So let me see, it's in a different folder. And this one is like the biggest one I made. And to be honest, I need to update it because when I built this, I didn't have the best make.com knowledge yet. So this was like when I was fresh into it. So some of the steps are a bit redundant. For example, I used the parse JSON module where you can also just on the API call module say like, return the result as a parsed JSON. So you just save one operation per run. Which, at this scale, as you can see, it runs quite a lot. It's definitely worth considering. But anyway, I don't really want to mess with the system because, again, it's going at a decent scale. So, I don't want to mess with it and make mistakes. So basically, what is this automation? What does this even do? First, we had the first AI layer where we're like, hey, is this like a newsletter? What is this? Then the second layer where we get the category based on our custom trained model, so a fine-tuned OpenAI model. And then this is basically the third step. So depending on what happened in that second step, we then basically have this whole automation run. So I'm not going to go through this entirely again, because the point of this video is to inspire and to kind of show you what is possible to automate. But basically what's happening here is it's going to look inside SmartLead, which is our sending tool. So SmartLead is like an email sequencing tool if you're not really into the lead generation space. It's an email sequencing tool where you can run the campaigns for your clients, and you have like sub-clients and everything. It works really well if you run a lead gen agency. But anyway, basically what we're doing here is, we're trying to say, okay, we now have this email where we know it's either a lead or an unsubscribe or whatever. And basically this entire thing, what it does is it just does the next steps, right? Like, what do we have to do next? So we get the information from front. We then search the lead in SmartLead, and then either we find it or we don't find it. Because if you email someone at, let's say, info@company name, and they reply from John@company name, you're not going to find the exact thing in SmartLead, right? Because you emailed this email address, but they responded from another one. So for that, we have like a different branch, and then there's like a manual step involved where we have someone check every day, like, okay, this email is probably linked to this one, and then they mark it in SmartLead to make sure these people don't receive any follow-ups. So that's one branch here. And then it creates a record right at the end, which is basically our Airtable where we keep track of all of the leads. And then on the other hand here, if it is found in SmartLead, then we update it as well. So we can, either it is done manually by like a VA, or we actually have a student, because we're in the Dutch market. So I haven't found a VA that can speak Dutch yet. But and then the branch here below, it's basically all about updating everything in SmartLead automatically, so we can also see exactly the interested rates, right? So each of our campaigns automatically show interested rates, and this is actually a huge value add, right? So like I said at the beginning of the video, either if you're doing this for yourself, for your own company, for a different type of company, or maybe a lead gen agency, or you're selling it to business owners, like having the right data be populated automatically, it's a huge value add, because now you can make better decisions. So yeah, that's about it with this automation. And then also maybe you'll notice that there's a couple of Slack things here. Does that mean every time we get a lead, we get a Slack notification? No. What we actually do is whenever there's some sort of error, I send Slack notifications in what I call like the bots channel. And basically in that channel, if there's an error, I get a Slack message, and then usually I have an extra layer that actually tries and solves the error itself automatically. But if it then just keeps populating, I know that I have to check make, and I have to make some updates or just look at some edge case that's going on. So it's a really easy way basically to do like error handling, where it's like, okay, if there's an error, send it over on the Slack and I know what to do, right? Because especially if you're running systems like these at scale, right, where it's important that it's done quickly, because we're working with leads, right? The slower this system is, the colder the lead is going to get. I want to get it over to a client within a couple minutes. And also, if you're doing it at scale, like if this automation would crash for a couple of hours because of some reason, I don't know, it means that potentially like dozens or even hundreds of leads are now getting called, and clients are not going to be happy about that. So that's when you implement this type of stuff. So another cool one I think I did is actually the AI out of office thing. So this is actually now also built into SmartLead, but I like to have a little bit more control over it. Anyway, and when I built it, it wasn't in there yet. Basically what we do is whenever someone responds to our outreach email with an out of office autoresponder, we then have AI read the email, or like classify the email and parse out the date. And it's really smart. So even if it's like, oh, I'm back on Monday, we give it like the current day and the current date, and then it kind of can understand, when to put someone back in rotation. So let me actually show you. So this is the most important one of that system. So every 10 minutes we check if there's a new out of office email added to our out of office base. So basically it's called front and then out of office. And in this base we check what the email actually contains. We look up the lead in SmartLead. If we can't find it, we actually update it here as well, because then we can't automatically update the status. So it's not going to be relevant. If we do find it, we actually look up the client IDs here. So this is actually another whole automation I have, which we'll go into a little bit later down in the video, which is basically every day I make a copy of all of the emails we have of clients. So for a client, let's say company.com joins us, we make an email address like john@getcompany.com. And then that email is assigned to a client ID in SmartLead, and I make a copy every single day into the data store here. So we can really quickly reference whenever we receive an email on a certain email address, what is actually the client ID and what client is that, right? Because we use the SmartLead client IDs also in our internal systems, so we can just sync everything together, right? So I know if john@getcompany.com gets a email, we actually know that is our client John over at company.com, and he has client ID number 1, right? Whatever. And then we can actually just do all of the other actions automatically, and also the custom things, right? Like where to send the lead to, and the CRM integration, all that kind of stuff is now synced because we have assigned client IDs to every single client. So yeah, basically then it creates completion here, and then if it's not sure, it assigns it here. So if it's not sure, we do a 2-week, which basically means after 2 weeks, we just press resume inside of the SmartLead interface, but then programmatically. So it means if someone got the first email and then they got a reply, we got a reply back saying, hey, I'm out of office, then we are pausing the campaign because we got a reply, and then after 2 weeks we're like on that lead, resume campaign, and then they get the next step of the sequence, and we do it 1 day after they're back in the office. So they just get the second email right away 1 day after they're back in the office. So we don't actually call out like, hey, I noticed you're out of office, because that would be a lot of hassle with like sub campaigns, whatever. Again, this is pretty niche if you're not into lead generation, but it's basically a hassle. We just resume the campaign and have our normal follow-up go out at a time that someone is actually back in office. And this worked really, really well over summer, especially since we do a lot of prospecting in Europe. They're out of office all summer, so this worked really well for us to still get the timing right and make sure we're not actually following up on someone that's out on the beach somewhere in the south of France because they're not going to reply, right? Then this branch is just if we have the date, so we set the actual date, and then if they're not coming back, so this is actually a pretty grim one sometimes, like people get ill or they're fired, which is less grim. And then we also make sure to unsubscribe that email address, because it's like basically means like our data was old, right? Like Apollo, it updates maybe every 3 months. So if someone got fired or someone fell ill, they're not coming back. We also mark it here. We unsubscribe that lead, so we make sure not to follow up with that email address. And yeah, we're good to go there then. So now I've showed you a couple automations. One to basically classify all of the emails we get and make sure if it's a lead to actually do the next steps. And then also I showed you the automated out of office system, how I built that, and how to basically mark that automatically inside of the old software and keep track in Airtable, etc. So now I want to actually show you another category of automations I built for my agency, which is the bot checks. So bot checks, it basically means it does automated tasks for me that are I would call them management tasks. So when you run a company, of course, you have multiple people doing things, you have dozens of campaigns being launched. You want to have some sort of checks go out, right? Like a quality control. And some things you obviously want to do manual, like read the scripts, whatever, are they actually up to our standards? But also some things you could automate, right? And that's the things I did here. So I'll just walk you through a couple of them. So I think the first one that's actually interesting is this check all automations hourly. So every hour I actually check if any of the automations have an error. If so, I then create a message in Slack. And the message actually says hey, there's an error. And I made it a bit funny, like bleep bloop, just to keep it light, right? But anyway, so it basically says hey, there's an error with the automation. This is the automation name, and then I tried resuming it. If you don't hear from me anymore, it's thumbs up, it's okay. So basically what this does is it then turns on the scenario again. So if we have an error, it then detects the error. It sends me a message hey, I found an error, but I tried resuming it. And then it turns it on again. If it then errors again, we'll get another Slack message, and basically whenever I see 2 Slack messages in a row, I know, okay, I have to go in there and actually look what's up. And I built it this way because usually the errors we get, it's because, the server is overloaded or some sort of authentication failed. And it's just a temporary error 99% of the time. Sometimes it's an edge case, but a lot of the time it's just, the server saying hey, we're overloaded right now. And obviously that's not something I want to manually then look at and then change and then basically come to the same conclusion hey, I just have to turn it back on in a couple hours when they fix their stuff over at whatever, software partner we're using. So this just does that automatically for me, and it's super easy. And I would really recommend to have this. Then another one is, for example, that queue that I talked about. I check if there's congestion in the queue, meaning if we have over 50 messages we need to go through, I then get a message as well, because this can indicate that there's some sort of error in the process, and it's just good to know when there's a little bit of delay in basically going through all of the email responses we have. So also know if the leads are a little bit delayed. I just get a Slack message, it just quickly checks it, and the way it does it is fairly simple. It just searches the Airtable records. It just searches the Airtable records with like a very high maximum. And then what I do, if the total number of bundles is actually greater than 24, I think I said 50, but greater than 24. So if there's more than 24 records waiting, so 25 or more, then we do the aggregator, so that we then can send a Slack message like, hey, there's an error with the queue, and then it's just the length. Please keep an eye. If you don't hear from me anymore, it's good to go. Again, same kind of logic there. So another one we have actually is like the GDPR / this is like a Dutch word for like crazy people. So again, like I said, with outreach, you just reach out to all sorts of people, and there are some people out there that are really sour, I would say, and they're just like, oh, why would you ever email me, blah blah blah, or they're even like, oh, what you're doing is illegal, which it's not if you do it the right way. And then it's just like those people we don't want to email again, because they're never gonna be people you want to do business with, and they're never gonna really respond positively to any other email again. So whenever we have someone like that, we actually unsubscribe them from all of the campaigns of all clients and also all future clients. So what we just do is we save someone like that inside of a data store, and then every single week we go through that data store, and then we just add them to the blacklists of all of our clients, so that we don't hit those types of people up again. And this is only really when they are, like I said, like really sour, or like, why would you email me? Like, I don't know, just that kind of stuff where it's like, all right, man, peace, you do you, we don't care, but like, hey, we're not gonna hit those people again. So this is also really a simple one, right? To also prevent any sort of like conflict around that in the future. You just unsubscribe all of those people, you do it automatically, and my account managers, whenever they have something like this, they just mark it in the database, and then all of our clients never have to deal with those types of people again, which is obviously a good thing, and we're happy about that. So that's another thing we do. Another one that I really like is actually the inbox health check and reconnection. So this is actually a pretty big one, as you can see. So what it does every single day, like very early in the morning, which we actually do on purpose, because then we're not using a lot of our API bandwidth. We can just like in the middle of the night, we usually don't get a lot of emails. So I run all of these automations at night, and then when I wake up and the team wakes up, any sort of issue we have, we know right away. So this is one thing we do, where basically we check all of our inboxes, and then if they're disconnected, we send a Slack message and we try automatic reconnection in SmartLead. So this is basically if an email inbox has some authentication issues or whatever, we can just automatically try a reconnect. And then we actually also add a task for one of our team members to then check if that worked. If it doesn't work, to manually fix it. Also, we check the inbox health, which again is something pretty niche, I would say. But basically, if the inbox is warming up to do cold outreach, you get some sort of score with that. And then if it's below 90%, what we actually do is we add it to another system I built, which like I said, we have automated like everything. So we call it inbox benching, which basically means for 2 weeks, we do not use that inbox anymore for outreach, and it's completely automated. So for 2 weeks, it's out of the rotation, and then we put it back in whenever that 2-week period is up. So yeah, that's another automation I built. So automatically checks that every day. And then if the warm-up is turned off for some reason, sometimes it happens, it can be a bit sloppy from someone that set it up really quickly. And then also, we create a task and we create another Slack message in that bot channel to notify, like, hey man, like you need to fix this and get everything set up, right? So this is another one. I think we're gonna do 1 or 2 more, but I have like plenty left still. So if you want to see more and you made it this far into the video, make sure to comment down below. Tell me what else you want to see, if there's any sort of thing you want to see how I deal with it, or you just want to see more. Let me know. Comment down below. And the comment really helps, guys. It's really appreciated. So yeah, if you made it this far and you got any value from it so far, which I think you do, with all of these automations, you probably got some idea and inspiration from it. Please leave a comment down below. It really helps. So yeah, anyway, this is the daily stats print. I called it. Sounds maybe a bit random, but basically what it does, it prints out the stats we have for each client every single day. And we do with like a Python script we have hosted here on AWS. So this is a pretty complicated one, but basically what it does, it kind of loops through all of our clients. Because with Lambda and with the limits we have with the API, it's actually pretty limited on SmartLead side. So we have to do it in like batches. So what this does, it basically goes through if the value is yes, and this is a complicated one, guys. So if it's yes, it then changes it to no, and then it starts going through all of the different slices. So it's a bit of a complicated logic. If you want to see this, let me know. I can make a video explaining it. But basically what it does, it gives us 9 chunks of clients. So we have like over 30 clients. That's why we need to set it up like this. And then we go through the first chunk, the second chunk, the third chunk, and then it gives to this code, it gives like the slice, right? Or chunk, slice, whatever. So like the first, the second, third, and it's basically like a counter I made. And I think you can actually also do this with the repeater module, but the problem there is with the repeater module is that it's all in one go and we have to space it out, right? So it's every 14 minutes, but then only between these times. And then it goes through this. So it's yeah, again, quite a complicated one. But what it does is it actually runs the code on AWS, and in that code we go through each and every client and we look at the stats from yesterday. So why do we do this? Well, because I wanted to add this into our Airtable. So whenever we see some dramatic drop or we see something really weird, we can automatically, notice it, and we have like a record inside of our Airtable as well, and that just shows everything and gives us good insight into what's going on with client performance. And again, this comes down to what I mentioned earlier, right? Like if you have better data, if you have more accurate data, if you have it quicker, you're gonna be able to make better decisions, and it's super valuable, obviously, for business owners to have that. So yeah, again, if you're doing this for clients, if you are building systems like this, keep that in mind and present it that way as well. Like, hey, you're going to have the right data easier, and also the system is going to proactively call it out whenever the data has some like anomaly in there. You can be on the ball more, and that way retain clients longer in the end. And then I have 2 more. So this is just like I said, you could do these like management wise when you have a manager or yourself already manager. But why do it that way if you can also automate it? So we do a daily check where we go through all of the active campaigns to see if they're actually assigned to a client. Because like I said before, the rest of our system really relies on that client ID being assigned, and just goes through everything and just checks if there's like something going on, or if the email bounce rate is over 5%, and then it automatically assigns a task to the right account manager. Like, hey, I detected a campaign that has a high bounce rate, please fix it and mark this with a check mark. And then also they have a task in our project management system to do it. So again, this way, any sort of issue we have, it proactively gets detected by our robots basically. And it's just super easy and just helps us catch these types of issues sooner, and also in that sense makes us able to fix them sooner. So this is like assigned to a client and the bounce rate. And then I have another one here, if all clients have at least 1 active campaign. So if you have an active client in SmartLead, but there's no campaign sending out, obviously, we have to, call that out, like what's up, right? And this is one of those issues we had before, where a campaign would run out and then the account manager wouldn't notice, and they would only notice like a couple days after the campaign had already run out, and then you have to do a new campaign, set it up, and then the client would be offline for, let's say, 25% of the month. And that's obviously really a no-go, because they hire us just to do everything consistently, and then we're not consistent because we didn't notice. So obviously this one is also very, very valuable, and yeah, again, automatically assigns tasks and calls everything out, so it's really helpful. So yeah, that's kind of what our system looks like. So in total, as you can see, we're at around 750,000 operations a month right now. I definitely think, like I said before, I can make a lot more efficient with like the newly found knowledge I have and some of the automations. But to be honest, for the price tag and for the size our agency is at, it's not really worth me spending like days and days revamping all of the systems. I might still do it, but not for the reason of saving operations or saving money, but more so for the reason of I want to eventually hand this system over to like a partner, maybe a partner with some agency or like an employee, because I don't want to be in these automations myself anymore. And then, it always helps to make everything like super clear, and some of the things, I understand, make sure someone else understands it as well. All right, so that's the video. So if you want more of this, please leave a comment down below. It really helps. Ask me questions, guys. Like, I'm really happy to receive questions, and maybe you can outline certain things you're trying to do, and I can, consider making a video on it. I'm really happy to do that, especially, depending on when you're watching this, but right now, as I'm recording this, I'm around 900 subs, and we're growing really fast. So I would really appreciate, just your input, like, hey, Jan, just make a video on this. I would really appreciate it. Or I would like to see how you would handle this issue inside of an automation, or my client wants to do this. How would you do it? Very happy to do that. I want to get the feedback from you guys, make content you guys actually want to see. So please leave a comment down below, really helps. And if you like the content and you're new here, also make sure to subscribe, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Cheers.